She fell asleep at the airport next to a stranger in an expensive suit, too exhausted to care, too desperate to run. He watched her all night, this single mom curled protectively around her son. What she didn't know, the calm businessman beside her was a mafia boss. And the moment her child smiled at him, everything changed. The announcement crackled through gate 47 like a death sentence. Flight 2847 to Phoenix has been canceled due to severe weather conditions. All passengers please proceed to the customer service desk for rebooking. Clara Bennett's hands trembled as she clutched her 7-year-old son closer. Noah was already asleep against her shoulder, his small fingers still sticky from the candy she'd bought him 3 gates ago, back when she still believed they'd make it out tonight. No, 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 she whispered, her voice breaking. She couldn't afford to stay. Not here. Not anywhere near Chicago. She stumbled toward the customer service desk, where a line of angry travelers already snaked back toward the food court. A man in a business suit was shouting about a meeting in Seattle. A college girl sobbed into her phone. Clara joined the back of the line, adjusting Noah's weight on her hip, and felt the familiar burn of tears behind her eyes. She couldn't cry. Not now. Not in front of all these people. The terminal lights hummed overhead, fluorescent and unforgiving. Through the massive windows, rain hammered against the tarmac in sheets. Lightning split the sky. The storm looked biblical, like God himself had decided Clara Bennett didn't deserve an escape. 3 hours later, she had her answer. No flights until morning. Maybe not even then. Ma'am, I can put you on standby for the 6 a.m., the gate agent said, not even looking up from her screen. But I'll be honest, with this weather pattern, I'd say your chances are 50-50. 50-50. Clara's entire life had become a coin flip. She carried Noah back through the terminal, past the closed shops and dimmed restaurants. The airport had transformed into a strange purgatory, full of stranded souls curled up on plastic chairs, using jackets as blankets, checking their phones every 30 seconds as if the weather might change through sheer willpower. Clara found a relatively quiet corner near Gate 52, away from the families and the fluorescent glare. She spread her thin cardigan on the floor. The seats had armrests that made lying down impossible, and settled Noah down gently. He didn't even stir. The boy could sleep through anything now. He'd learned that skill over the past 6 months, when Mommy started packing bags in the middle of the night. She lay down beside him, curling her body around his like a shield. The floor was cold and hard, but at least it was flat. At least they were together. At least. That's when she noticed him. The man sat 3 feet away, his back against the wall between 2 gates, long legs stretched out in front of him. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Clara's entire wardrobe, and even she checked her phone. 2:47 a.m., he looked perfectly composed. Not a wrinkle. Not a hair out of place. But it was his eyes that caught her. He was watching them. Not staring exactly, but observing with the kind of attention that made Clara's survival instincts flare. His gaze was dark, intelligent, and unsettlingly calm, like a man who had seen everything the world had to offer and found most of it disappointing. Clara's hand instinctively moved to Noah's back. She'd learned to read dangerous men. Her ex-husband had taught her that lesson with his fists. But this man didn't look angry. He didn't look hungry or aggressive or any of the things she'd learned to fear. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with the late hour. Their eyes met. Clara felt her breath catch. She should look away. She should grab Noah and move to a different gate, find somewhere else to sleep where strangers didn't watch her with eyes that seemed to see straight through to all her desperate, running secrets. But she was so tired. Tired of running. Tired of being afraid. Tired of making decisions that all led to sleeping on airport floors. So instead, she did something reckless. She held his gaze. For 3 heartbeats, they stared at each other across the gate area. The man's expression shifted, just slightly, something flickering behind those dark eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition of some kind. Then he did something unexpected. He reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, keeping his movements visible, and pulled out a small blanket. The kind airlines give out in first class, still wrapped in plastic. He stood up in one fluid motion, crossed the distance between them, and held it out to her.
"For the boy," he said.
His voice was low, rough around the edges, with the faintest trace of an East Coast accent. "New York, maybe. It gets cold at night." Clara stared at the blanket, at his outstretched hand, at the expensive watch on his wrist, and the small scar that cut through his left eyebrow. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to say no thank you, and turn away and protect Noah from whatever this strange man might want in return. But Noah was shivering. She could feel it against her chest, small tremors running through his thin frame. "Thank you," she whispered, taking the blanket. Their fingers brushed for just a second. His were warm and steady, and then he stepped back. He returned to his spot against the wall and settled back down as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just shown more kindness than any stranger had in months. Clara draped the blanket over Noah, tucking it around his shoulders. He sighed in his sleep and burrowed deeper against her. She looked back at the man. He wasn't watching anymore. His eyes were closed, his head tilted back against the wall, hands folded across his stomach. He looked like any other stranded traveler trying to catch a few hours of rest. But Clara knew better. She'd seen the way he moved, graceful and controlled like a predator. She'd seen the calculation in his eyes, the weight of authority in the set of his shoulders. This was not an ordinary man sleeping in an airport. And yet, he'd given her son a blanket. Clara pulled Noah closer and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, they'd get on that plane. Tomorrow, they'd disappear into Phoenix, into new names and new lives, away from her ex-husband and his connections and his promises that next time, he wouldn't stop at just bruises. Tomorrow, she'd be safe. But tonight, in this strange in-between space where the rules of the normal world didn't quite apply, she let herself feel something she hadn't felt in months. Not quite safe. But maybe, for just a moment, not entirely alone. 3 feet away, the man opened his eyes. Matteo DeLuca watched Clara Bennett fall into an uneasy sleep, her body still curved protectively around her child, and felt something shift in his chest, something he'd thought died 2 years ago when they'd put his sister Sophia in the ground. He'd come to Chicago to end a war, to sit across from the Rossi family and negotiate peace before his city drowned in blood. He hadn't expected to find something worth protecting instead. Morning arrived with the kind of pale, apologetic light that follows storms. Clara woke to Noah tugging at her sleeve, his whisper urgent in her ear. "Mama, I need the bathroom." She blinked away the fog of too little sleep and sat up, her back screaming in protest. The airport was already stirring to life, gate agents arriving for early shifts, janitors pushing industrial cleaning carts, the coffee shops raising their metal shutters with a clatter that echoed through the terminal. The man was still there. He sat in the same position, though now he was awake, checking his phone with the focused attention of someone reading something important. In the harsh morning light, Clara could see him more clearly, mid-30s, maybe 40, with the kind of face that was more striking than handsome. Sharp cheekbones, a nose that had been broken, at least once, and that scar through his eyebrow that made him look dangerous even when he was doing something as mundane as scrolling through messages. "Come on, baby," Clara whispered to Noah, helping him to his feet. The blanket, the stranger's blanket, slipped to the floor. She picked it up, folding it carefully, and approached the man. He looked up as she came near, his dark eyes unreadable. "Thank you," Clara said, holding out the blanket. "Really? That was kind." He took it with a slight nod. "Kid okay?" "Just needs the restroom." "There's one past the Starbucks." He gestured down the concourse. "Usually cleaner than the main ones." Clara hesitated. "You've been here before?" Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe. "I fly through Chicago a lot." Noah tugged her hand harder. "Mama, please." "Right, sorry." Thank you again, mister. Mateo, he said. Just the first name. Nothing more. Clara, she managed a small smile. And this is Noah. The man, Mateo, looked at her son for a long moment, his expression softening in a way that seemed to surprise him. Nice to meet you, Noah. 20 minutes later, they returned to find Mateo still there, now with 2 coffee cups and an orange juice box. He held out the juice to Noah without a word. Oh, you don't have to, Clara started. He looks thirsty. Noah's eyes went wide. Can I, Mama? She should say no. She should maintain boundaries with strange men in airports who watched her sleep and bought her son drinks. But Noah's face was so hopeful, and the juice box looked so normal, so harmless, and Clara was just so tired of being the parent who always said no to everything. Okay, but what do you say? Thank you. Noah grabbed the juice box and immediately started struggling with the straw. Mateo reached over and peeled the straw off the side, poking it through the foil hole with practiced ease. The gesture was so natural, so paternal, that Clara felt her throat tighten. You have kids? She asked before she could stop herself. No, his voice went flat. Just a good memory. Clara wanted to ask more, but something in his tone told her the door had closed. Instead, she accepted the coffee he offered, black, strong, exactly what she needed. They sat in awkward silence for a moment, Noah slurping his juice between them. Then it happened. Noah squeezed the box too hard. Orange juice exploded out the top, spraying across Mateo's sleeve, the pristine white cuff of his expensive shirt now stained bright orange. Oh my God! Clara lunged forward, grabbing napkins from her bag. Noah, be careful. I'm so sorry, She stopped. Mateo was smiling. Not a polite smile. Not a forced, it's okay smile. A real smile. One that reached his eyes and carved lines into his face and made him look suddenly, startlingly human. It's just juice, he said, still smiling as he dabbed at the stain. I've had worse on this shirt. I'll pay for the cleaning. Clara, he said her name like he was gentling a spooked horse. It's fine. Really? Noah's lower lip trembled. I didn't mean to. Mateo looked at the boy, and his expression shifted into something tender. Hey, you know what? This shirt was too boring anyway. Now it's got character. He held up his orange-stained cuff.
See?
One of a kind. Noah giggled. Actually giggled, and Clara felt something crack open in her chest. You're good with kids, she said quietly, helping clean up the mess. I had a sister, past tense. That flat tone again. She had a son about Noah's age. Had. Mateo's jaw tightened.
Car accident.
2 years ago. Both of them. I'm so sorry. He shook his head, standing up to throw away the soaked napkins. When he came back, his expression was carefully neutral again. The wall rebuilt. What about you? Where are you headed? Clara's instinct was to lie, to say anything except the truth. But something about the way he'd shared his loss made her want to be honest. Phoenix, she said. We're starting over. Running from something. Her heart stopped. What makes you say that? Mateo's eyes met hers, and Clara saw the intelligence there, the sharp assessment of a man who read people the way she used to read bedtime stories to Noah. Because I know what running looks like, he said softly. And you've got the eyes of someone who's been looking over her shoulder for too long. Clara's throat went dry. My ex-husband. He's not a good man. We need to disappear. Mateo's entire demeanor changed. His shoulders tensed. His hands curled into fists before he deliberately relaxed them. When he spoke, his voice was cold enough to frost glass. Did he hurt you? It wasn't really a question. Clara pulled her collar up unconsciously, covering the faded bruise on her collarbone. We're leaving. That's what matters. Clara. We should go check the standby list. She stood up quickly, pulling Noah with her. Thank you for the coffee. And the juice. And everything. Mateo stood too, and suddenly he was in her space. Not threatening, but close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody. Wait, he reached into his jacket and pulled out 2 boarding passes. First class. Phoenix. Departing in 40 minutes. What are you? Take them, he said, pressing the passes into her hand. I'm done traveling anyway. I can't accept. Yes, you can, his eyes locked onto hers, intense and urgent. Get on that plane. Get somewhere safe. And Clara? He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. If your ex comes looking, make sure you stay disappeared. Men like that don't stop. They only get worse. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the morning crowd. Clara stood frozen, holding 2 first-class tickets to freedom, while Noah tugged at her hand and asked why the nice man had left so quickly. She didn't have an answer. She didn't know that Mateo had just received a text from his lieutenant. Rossi family tracked you to O'Hare. They're watching the gates. She didn't know that her ex-husband, Marcus Bennett, had once done security work for the Rossi crime syndicate. She didn't know that by sleeping next to Matteo De Luca for 6 hours, she'd accidentally wandered into the middle of a Mafia war. But she would. Clara stood at gate 52, clutching the boarding passes like they might evaporate. First class. 2 seats. Her name and Noah's. Somehow Matteo had known their full names, though she'd never told him Noah's last name. That should have terrified her. Instead, she felt only a strange numbness as she watched the gate agent scan the passes. The woman smiled, actually smiled, and said, "Welcome aboard, Miss Bennett. You and your son can board anytime." Noah bounced on his toes. "Mama, we get to go first." "Yeah, baby, we do." They walked down the jet bridge, and Clara couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her back. She turned once, scanning the crowd at the gate, but saw only tired travelers and business people checking their phones.
No, Mateo.
He'd vanished as suddenly as he'd appeared, leaving behind only his tickets and that warning. Men like that don't stop. They only get worse. The first-class cabin was a revelation. Wide leather seats. Warm towels offered by a smiling flight attendant. Noah pressed his face against the window, watching the ground crew load luggage below. "Mama, this is like a flying castle." Clara managed to smile, buckling him in. "It is, isn't it?" As the plane filled, she kept expecting someone to tell her there'd been a mistake, that these seats belonged to someone else, that women like her, broke, running, desperate, didn't get first-class tickets to anywhere. But no one came. The plane pushed back from the gate exactly on time. Through the window, Clara watched O'Hare International Airport grow smaller, and with it, everything she was running from. Marcus and his fists. Chicago and its memories. The apartment where she'd learned to flinch at footsteps. "We're flying, Mama." Noah pressed against the window as the wheels left the ground. "We are," Clara whispered. "We really are." She didn't see Mateo standing at the terminal window 3 gates down, watching her plane climb into the cloudy sky. Didn't see the way his jaw tightened, or how his hand moved unconsciously to his chest, pressing against his heart like he was trying to hold something in. She didn't see the 3 men in dark suits approaching him from behind. "Boss," the voice was quiet, respectful. "We have a problem." Mateo didn't turn from the window. "What kind of problem, Vincent?" His lieutenant stepped closer, lowering his voice even further. "Rossi's people. They've been tracking you through airport security feeds. They know you were here." "How many?" "At least 6 that we've spotted. They're watching all the exits." Mateo finally turned, his expression carefully blank. "Did they see the woman?" Vincent hesitated. "We're not sure."
But boss.
"Why does it matter? She's just some random." "Did they see her?" Each word was precise, dangerous.
Possibly.
"You were sitting together for hours. If they were monitoring you, they might have footage." Mateo's hands curled into fists. He'd been careless.
Sloppy.
He'd let his guard down because of a crying child and a woman with terrified eyes, and now. Her flight just took off. Phoenix. Should land in about 3 hours. Good, Mateo straightened his cuffs, covering the orange juice stain that had somehow made him smile for the first time in 2 years. Get me everything on her. Full background. And I want to know who she's running from. Boss, I don't understand. You don't need to, Mateo's voice went cold. Just do it. Vincent nodded and pulled out his phone, already making calls. The other 2 men flanked Mateo as they moved through the terminal, not obviously protective, but positioned to intercept any threat. Mateo walked with the casual confidence of a man who owned every space he entered. To anyone watching, he looked like just another business traveler heading home after a delayed flight. But the Rossi family knew better. They'd called this meeting to negotiate territory, to end the quiet war that had been simmering between New York's 5 families for the past year. Mateo had come because he was tired of blood, tired of funerals, tired of becoming the monster everyone expected him to be. He'd come to make peace. Instead, he'd found something more dangerous, someone he wanted to protect. His phone buzzed. A text from his cousin, Anthony, back in New York. Meeting's off. Rossi pulled out. Says you disrespected him by wandering around like a tourist instead of staying put. They're calling it an insult. Mateo typed back. When? 20 minutes ago. They're pissed, Mateo. Real pissed. Watch your back. Vincent appeared at his elbow. Cars waiting at arrivals. Different route than planned. Smart. They moved through the terminal, past the shops and restaurants now fully open for morning business. A child laughed somewhere nearby, high and pure, and Mateo thought of Noah's giggle when he'd called his orange-stained shirt one of a kind. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a file from Vincent. Clara Bennett's background check. Mateo opened it as they walked, scanning the details. Clara Marie Bennett, 29. Born in Portland, Oregon. Married Marcus Bennett 5 years ago. 1 child, Noah Bennett, age 7. Filed for divorce 8 months ago. 3 domestic disturbance calls to Chicago PD. No arrests made. Current employment. Unemployed. Last known address. Chicago, Illinois. Vacated 2 weeks ago. Marcus Bennett, former Chicago PD. Discharged 3 years ago. Currently employed by Rossi Security Consulting. Mateo stopped walking. Boss. Vincent looked back. Rossi Security Consulting. The legitimate front company the Rossi family used for their muscle. The place they put ex-cops and former military who didn't mind breaking rules or bones. Clara wasn't just running from an abusive ex-husband. She was running from someone connected to the very family that wanted Mateo dead. Change of plans, Mateo said quietly. I need a flight to Phoenix. Private jet.
Now.
Boss, we need to get you back to New York. The Rossis. Can wait, Mateo's voice cut like a blade. Get me that flight, Vincent. And pull everything you can find on Marcus Bennett. I want to know what he does for the Rossis, who he reports to, and where he is right now. Vincent and the other men exchanged glances, but they knew better than to argue when Mateo used that tone. As they headed toward the private aviation terminal, Mateo looked out at the sky where Clara's plane had disappeared into the clouds. He'd given her his tickets thinking it was a simple kindness, a way to save a woman and child who reminded him of everything he'd lost. He hadn't realized he was putting them directly in the crosshairs of a family war. But now that he knew, there was only one choice. The Rossis wanted to play games?
Fine.
Mateo DeLuca had been playing them longer and better than anyone alive. And he'd just found the only piece on the board that actually mattered. Clara Bennett had no idea she'd been running from one threat straight into the protection of another. Or that the calm stranger who'd given her a blanket and a smile was about to burn down half the criminal underworld to keep her safe. Phoenix greeted Clara with a kind of dry, relentless heat that felt like stepping into an oven. She held Noah's hand as they navigated Sky Harbor Airport, her eyes scanning every face, every corner, waiting for Marcus to materialize from the crowd with that smile he used before the hitting started. But there was no one. Just tourists in sun hats and business travelers dragging roller bags. Mama, I'm hot, Noah whined, tugging at his jacket. I know, baby. We'll get somewhere cool soon. The motel was exactly what $47 a night bought. Peeling paint, questionable stains on the carpet, and a window unit that rattled like it was dying. But it had a lock on the door, and a bed that wasn't an airport floor, and right now that felt like paradise. Clara paid in cash, bills she'd been hiding from Marcus for 6 months, $20 at a time, tucked inside a tampon box because she knew he'd never look there. Room 23, the desk clerk said, handing over a physical key. Ice machine's broken. Vending machine only takes exact change. That's fine. Thank you. She got Noah settled with the iPad she'd bought at a pawn shop, loaded with downloaded cartoons that didn't need Wi-Fi. He sprawled across the bed, already absorbed in a world of talking animals and adventure, while Clara sat by the window and tried to remember how to breathe. They'd made it. They were here. Phoenix, Arizona, a city where Marcus didn't know anyone, where she could get a job paying under the table, where they could disappear into the sprawl of strip malls and subdivisions until they were just another single mom and her kid.
Safe.
She almost believed it. 3,000 miles away, in a private office above a restaurant in Brooklyn, Matteo DeLuca stood before a wall of monitors displaying information that most people would never see. Vincent pointed to a screen. Marcus Bennett, age 34. Chicago PD for 6 years, discharged after an excessive force complaint. Hired by Rossi Security 2 months later. He does collection work mostly, intimidation, asset recovery, the occasional enforcement job. Enforcement, Matteo repeated flatly. Yeah, Vincent pulled up another file. 3 suspected homicides, all ruled self-defense or accidental. The guy's connected enough that charges never stick. Matteo's jaw clenched. And Clara? Married him 5 years ago. Probably didn't know what she was getting into. First police call came 3 years into the marriage. Neighbors reported screaming. By the time cops arrived, she'd already told them it was nothing, said she dropped a dish, got startled. Classic, Matteo muttered. It escalated from there. 2 more calls in the next year. Last one, she had a broken wrist. Told the ER she fell downstairs. Vincent paused. Hospital records show the break pattern was consistent with defensive injuries, like someone grabbed her and twisted. Matteo turned away from the screens, his hands gripping the edge of his desk. He could see it too clearly. Clara, smaller than Marcus, trying to protect herself. Noah, hiding in his room, learning to sleep through violence. Where's Marcus now? Vincent pulled up a GPS tracker. That's the interesting part. He's in Phoenix. The room went cold. Since when? Landed yesterday morning. 6 hours before Clara and the kid. Vincent zoomed in on the map. He's staying at a casino hotel on the north side. We've had eyes on him since you ordered the full surveillance. So he knows where she's going. Looks like it. He probably has her phone tracked, or he's been monitoring her purchases. She bought those plane tickets with a credit card. Stupid move, but she probably didn't know better. Matteo's mind raced. Marcus was already in Phoenix. Already waiting. This wasn't Clara running away successfully. This was a cat letting the mouse think it had escaped before pouncing. What's Marcus's connection to the Rossis specifically? Matteo asked. He just muscle, or is there more? Vincent hesitated. That's where it gets complicated. We pulled his work records. Guess who his primary contact is? Tell me. Sal Rossi. The youngest son. The one who called the meeting in Chicago. Matteo finished. The one who wanted to negotiate. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The Rossis had tracked Matteo to O'Hare. They'd watched him in the airport. They'd seen him with Clara and Noah, seen him give up his first-class tickets, seen him act protective over a woman and child who should have meant nothing to him. And then they'd pulled out of the peace talks. Not because Matteo had insulted them by walking around like a tourist. Because they'd found leverage. Boss, Vincent said carefully, Clara Bennett isn't just some woman running from her ex. She's accidentally become a target because she slept next to you in an airport. I know. Matteo's voice was ice. The Rossis probably don't even know who she is yet. They just know you cared enough to give her your tickets. That's all they need. Vincent pulled up security footage from O'Hare, grainy but clear enough to show Mateo smiling as he handed Noah the juice box. This is the first time in 2 years anyone's caught you showing emotion in public. The Rossis will use that. Mateo stared at the screen, at his own face looking almost human again for just a moment. He'd been so careful since Sophia died. Careful not to care, not to show weakness, not to give his enemies anything they could use against him. He'd built walls so high that nothing could touch him. And then a 7-year-old spilled juice on his sleeve, and he'd smiled. Now that smile might get them killed. "What do you want us to do?" Vincent asked. Mateo pulled out his phone, opening a secure messaging app. "I want a team in Phoenix. Best we have, Anthony, Marco, and Teresa. I want them on Clara 24/7, invisible perimeter. If Marcus breathes near that motel, I want to know about it. And if the Rossis make a move, then we make sure they regret it." Mateo looked up, his eyes flat and dangerous. "But Vincent?"
No killing.
"Not unless absolutely necessary. I'm done with that approach." Vincent blinked. "Boss, these are the Rossis. They don't do subtle." "Then we'll teach them." Mateo straightened his jacket. "Get me a flight to Phoenix. And pull everything you can on Sal Rossi's business operations. I want to know where he's vulnerable. Financial records, political connections, anything illegal that he thinks is hidden. You're going after them without violence. I'm going after them with something worse." A cold smile crossed Mateo's face. "Information. The Rossis built their empire on secrets and blackmail. Let's see how they like it when someone uses their own weapons against them." As Vincent left to make arrangements, Mateo looked back at the monitor showing Clara's location. The cursor blinked over a cheap motel on the outskirts of Phoenix. She thought she'd escaped. She thought she was starting fresh. She had no idea that her ex-husband was less than 10 miles away, or that a Mafia family was trying to decide whether she was worth using as bait, or that the man who'd smiled at her son in an airport was currently deploying a protection detail that cost more than most people made in a year. Clara Bennett wanted to disappear. Instead, she'd become the center of a storm she couldn't even see coming. But Mateo could. And he'd be damned if he let it touch her. Clara spent 3 days building a life from nothing. She found a job washing dishes at a diner called Rose's Kitchen. No questions asked, cash paid daily. Exactly the kind of place that didn't care about background checks or references. The work was hard and hot, her hands raw from industrial soap by the end of each shift, but it was honest money. Safe money. Noah started at a new elementary school under their real names because Clara didn't know how to forge documents and couldn't afford to find out. Every morning, she walked him to the bus stop 3 blocks from the motel, kissed his forehead, and watched him climb aboard with his second-hand backpack. Every morning, she waited for Marcus to appear. He never did. By the 4th day, Clara started to believe they might actually make it. She was leaving Rose's through the back door. Already dark at 8 p.m., the desert air finally cooling, when she saw the envelope. It sat on the windshield of her beat-up Honda Civic like a parking ticket, white and official-looking. Clara's heart hammered as she approached. Parking ticket she could handle. Immigration notice she could probably handle. But when she opened it, the world tilted sideways. Inside were 2 passports. U.S. passports, brand new, with her and Noah's photos but different names, Sarah and Ethan Moore. Beneath them, a single note in precise handwriting. Start fresh. Don't look back.
No signature. No explanation.
Clara's hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped everything. She looked around the empty parking lot, just her car and a dumpster, and the distant sound of traffic on the highway. "What the hell?" she whispered. Someone knew where she was. Someone had access to her photos she'd only taken for the school enrollment forms 2 days ago. Someone had the power to create federal documents. And someone wanted her to run again. Clara shoved the passports back in the envelope and drove to the motel with her eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. Every car behind her looked suspicious. Every stranger on the sidewalk could be watching. She burst into the motel room to find Noah sitting cross-legged on the bed, carefully coloring in a dinosaur picture. The babysitter, a teenage girl from the front desk, looked up from her phone. "Everything okay, Ms. Bennett?" "Fine," Clara forced a smile, pulling cash from her pocket. "Thanks for watching him, Jessica." After the girl left, Clara locked the door, fastened the chain, and shoved a chair under the handle for good measure. Noah looked up confused.
Nama?
"What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Just being careful." She knelt beside him, smoothing his hair back. "Did anyone come by? Anyone knock on the door?" "Just the ice machine man." "But he didn't knock, he just fixed the machine outside." Clara went cold. "What did he look like?" "I dunno. I only saw through the window. He had a blue shirt." She moved to the window, peeking through the curtains. The parking lot looked normal. The ice machine sat silent in its alcove, a handwritten, out-of-order sign still taped to it. But someone had been there. Someone wearing a blue shirt, pretending to fix a machine that had been broken since they'd arrived. The envelope felt heavy in her purse, like it was gaining weight. Clara didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window with a kitchen knife she'd stolen from Rose's, watching shadows move across the parking lot, jumping at every sound. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept, lifting it slowly to her ear. "Hello?" Clara, the voice was male, familiar, sending ice down her spine. "You really thought you could run?" "Marcus." How did I get this number?" "Baby, I've had this number all along. Did you really think changing your plan would help?" His laugh was cruel. "I let you run. Wanted to see how far you'd get. Turns out, not very far." Clara's grip tightened on the knife. "Stay away from us. Or what? You'll call the cops?" "We both know how that works out." His voice dropped, intimate and threatening. "You're mine, Clara. You and Noah both. And tomorrow, I'm coming to remind you of that." The line went dead. Clara sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear, her whole body shaking. He knew where she was. He'd known all along. This entire time, she'd been living in a trap, thinking she was free. She looked at the envelope on the nightstand. Start fresh. Don't look back. Someone else knew too. Someone was offering her a way out, a real way out, with new identities and new lives. But who? And what did they want in return? Clara didn't see the man in the sedan across the parking lot, or the woman in the maintenance uniform who'd actually fixed the ice machine while installing a micro camera. She didn't see Anthony DeLuca reviewing the footage on his tablet, or hear him call his cousin with an update. "Boss, we've got a problem." Marcus just called her. "He's making his move." Mateo's voice came through tight with fury. "When?" He said tomorrow. "And boss, there's more. Someone else delivered a package tonight. Passports, fake IDs, the works. Professional job. We didn't get eyes on who dropped it. The Rossis? Maybe. Or someone else entirely. Either way, Clara's about to bolt, and if she does, we lose her." Mateo was quiet for a long moment. "Is the Phoenix team in position?" "Ready when you are." "Good. Because we're moving tonight." "Tonight?" "Boss, you said no violence unless." "I'm not planning violence, Anthony. I'm planning extraction." Mateo's voice was steel. "Marcus wants to make a move tomorrow? He's going to wake up with bigger problems than a missing ex-wife. And those passports? Find out who made them. I want to know every player in this game." As Mateo ended the call, he looked out the window of his hotel room, the penthouse suite of the Phoenician resort, just 7 miles from Clara's motel. He'd been in Phoenix for 2 days, orchestrating protection from a distance, trying to figure out the right approach. But Marcus had just made the decision for him. No more distance. No more careful planning. Tomorrow, Clara would wake up to find her world completely changed. She just didn't know yet whether that change would save her or destroy her. And somewhere in the Phoenix night, Sal Rossi smiled as he reviewed the same surveillance footage Anthony had just watched. The passports had been his idea, a test to see what the woman would do. Run, and she'd prove she was worth using as leverage against Matteo De Luca. Stay, and she'd be easy pickings for Marcus Bennett. Either way, the Rossis won. Or so Sal thought. He didn't know that Matteo De Luca had stopped playing by the old rules. And he was about to find out why that was a mistake. The word came at dawn. Sal Rossi wanted a meeting. Not in Phoenix. Not in New York.
Milan.
It's a power play, Vincent said over the secure line. He wants you on neutral ground, away from your people. Matteo stood on his hotel balcony, watching the Phoenix sunrise paint the desert pink and gold. Somewhere in this sprawling city, Clara was waking up in a motel room, probably still clutching that kitchen knife, unaware that 3 of his best people were stationed around her building. When, he asked. 2 days. He's calling it a peace summit with the other families. Says if you don't come, he'll consider it an act of war. Matteo smiled without humor. Of course he will. What's the real play? My guess? He wants you out of Phoenix. Wants you away from the woman so he can move on her without interference. Then he's stupider than I thought. Matteo turned back into his room, already mentally packing. Book the flight. And Vincent? Send Marco to Phoenix. I want him personally overseeing Clara's protection while I'm gone. Boss, Marco's your best. Exactly. Which is why he's the only one I trust with this. Matteo paused. And get me everything on Sal Rossi's businesses. Every shell company, every politician on his payroll, every dirty secret he thinks is buried. I want ammunition. You're really going to take him down without bloodshed? I'm going to take him down so completely that bloodshed would be a mercy. Milan greeted Matteo with cold rain and the kind of old-world elegance that always made him think of his grandfather, a man who'd built an empire on handshakes and fear in equal measure. The meeting took place in a private room at Ristorante Krakow, all white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers. 5 families represented, their bosses sitting around the table like corporate executives instead of criminals. Sal Rossi sat at the head, younger than Matteo by 5 years, but already going soft around the middle. He had his father's eyes, calculating and cold, but none of the old man's cunning. Matteo, Sal smiled like they were old friends. Good of you to come. You made it sound urgent. Matteo took his seat, accepting espresso from a server who was definitely armed under his jacket. It is urgent. We've been bleeding for 18 months. Territory disputes, supply chain conflicts, the feds breathing down our necks. It needs to stop. Sal gestured around the table. We all agree. It's time for peace. I'm listening. What followed was 2 hours of negotiation, territory lines redrawn, profit shares adjusted, agreements on political contributions and law enforcement management. Standard business for men who ran cities from the shadows. Matteo played along, nodding at the right moments, suggesting compromises that made him look reasonable. But he was watching Sal, reading the tells, the way he touched his phone every 15 minutes, the glances he exchanged with his cousin across the table, the satisfied smirk he couldn't quite hide. Sal thought he was winning. During a break, Matteo stepped outside for air. The rain had stopped, leaving Milan's streets slick and gleaming. Vincent's text came through immediately. Marcus made contact with the motel. Tried to get the room number from the desk clerk.
Marco intercepted.
No violence, but it's escalating. Matteo typed back. Keep her safe. I'm almost done here. He pulled up another file on his phone, the one his research team had compiled over the past 48 hours. Sal Rossi's entire operation, laid bare. The shell companies in Panama, the kickbacks to city councilmen, the offshore accounts, the blackmail material he kept on business partners. And the piece of information that would end this. Evidence that Sal had been skimming from the family's main operations, hiding profits from his own father and brothers. 15 million over 3 years, tucked away in preparation for a coup. Matteo smiled. Sal wasn't just playing games with Clara to hurt Matteo. He was building towards something bigger, a takeover of his own family's empire. which meant Mateo didn't need to destroy him. He just needed to let Sal's own family do it. Back inside, the meeting reconvened. They signed agreements, meaningless papers that men like them broke whenever convenient. They shook hands and made promises they wouldn't keep. And then, as everyone stood to leave, Mateo dropped his bomb. Sal, one more thing. He pulled out a tablet, bringing up a bank transfer record. Can you explain this transaction? 20,000 euros to a Portuguese account, dated last week. Sal's smile faltered. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the accounts you've been hiding from your family. Mateo swiped through the files, each one damning. Panama, Cayman Islands, Singapore. 15 million skimmed off operations over 3 years. The room went silent. Sal's face turned red. That's fabricated. You're making up lies. Am I? Mateo looked at the other bosses. I have transaction records, wire transfers, account statements. All very real. All very traceable. He paused. I also have evidence that Sal's been negotiating with the feds. Immunity deal in exchange for testimony against all of us. That was a lie, but a believable one, given the financial evidence. You son of a bitch, Sal snarled, lunging forward. His own cousin grabbed him, holding him back. The other bosses were already standing, faces hard, trust shattered in an instant. Mateo calmly closed his tablet. I came here for peace. But peace requires honesty. And Sal's been lying to all of us. He looked directly at Giovanni Rossi, Sal's uncle, and the real power in their family. I'll leave you to handle your house, Giovanni. As for territory, I'm withdrawing from the disputed zones. Consider it a gesture of good faith to the families who deserve it. He walked out of the restaurant into Milan's damp evening, leaving chaos behind him. Vincent was waiting with the car. How'd it go? The Rossi family is about to tear itself apart from the inside, Mateo said, sliding into the back seat. Sal won't have time to worry about Clara or me. He'll be too busy trying to convince his own family not to kill him. And if they do kill him, then I didn't pull the trigger. Mateo checked his phone. Get me on the next flight to Phoenix. And tell Marco I'm coming in personally. Boss, is this really about protecting the woman? Or is this about Sophia? Mateo's voice went quiet. Maybe both. Or maybe I'm just tired of watching good people get hurt by men like Sal Rossi. Either way, Clara Bennett doesn't become collateral damage. Not on my watch. As the car pulled away, Mateo looked out at Milan's ancient streets and thought about power, how he'd spent years accumulating it, using it, building walls with it. And how, for the first time since Sophia died, he was using it for something other than revenge. It felt strange. It felt right. And it felt terrifying because Clara Bennett had somehow become the most dangerous thing in his world, someone worth losing everything to protect. Clara woke to Noah's scream. She was on her feet before she fully opened her eyes, knife in hand, adrenaline flooding her system. Noah stood by the window, pointing outside, his face pale.
Mama.
There's a man. Clara rushed to the window and saw him, Marcus, standing in the parking lot beside a black SUV, staring directly at their room. Even from the second floor, she could see his smile. That predator's smile that meant someone was about to get hurt. She grabbed Noah, pulling him away from the window.
Get dressed. Now.
We're leaving. But Mama.
Now, Noah.
Her hands shook as she threw their few belongings into her duffel bag. The passports, those mysterious passports with their new names, went into her jacket pocket. She didn't know who'd sent them or why, but right now they might be her only chance. She opened the door, checking the hallway. Empty. They could take the back stairs, get to the car. Marcus was already there, at the top of the stairs, blocking the exit. Going somewhere, baby? Clara shoved Noah behind her, raising the knife. Stay back. Or what? You'll stab me? Marcus laughed, taking a step closer. You don't have it in you. You never did. That's why you always came crawling back. I said stay back. Give me my son, Clara. He doesn't need to see his mama get hurt. Again. Noah whimpered behind her. Clara's grip on the knife tightened, her whole body trembling. This was it. This was how it ended, in a motel hallway in Phoenix, with her son watching, with nowhere left to run. Then a door opened behind Marcus. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, with a kind of presence that made people step aside instinctively. He wore jeans and a casual shirt, but something about him screamed danger. "Excuse me," the man said politely. "You're blocking the stairs." Marcus turned, irritated. "Mind your business, pal." "That's the thing," the man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You are my business. Mr. DeLuca would like a word with you." Marcus's expression changed. "DeLuca? I don't know any." Two more people appeared, a woman from the stairwell below, a second man from the hallway behind Clara. They moved with synchronized precision, boxing Marcus in. "You're going to come with us quietly," the first man said. "Or we'll make it loud. Your choice." Marcus looked at Clara, at Noah, back at the three people surrounding him. For the first time since she'd known him, Clara saw fear flicker across his face. "This isn't over," he snarled at her. "Yeah," the man said. "It really is." They escorted Marcus down the stairs like it was choreographed. Clara stood frozen, Noah clinging to her leg, the knife still in her hand. The woman, athletic, sharp-eyed, with auburn hair pulled back, approached slowly. "Ms. Bennett?"
I'm Teresa.
"We're here to help. Who are you people?"
Friends.
"Well, friends of a friend." Teresa knelt down to Noah's level. "Hey there, brave guy. You okay?" Noah nodded, but his arms tightened around Clara's leg. "Ms. Bennett," Teresa continued, "we need to move you. This location's compromised. We have a secure place arranged. I'm not going anywhere with." A voice from the stairwell interrupted her. Clara. She knew that voice. Mateo appeared at the top of the stairs, still wearing the expensive suit from the airport, though now it was rumpled from travel. His dark eyes found hers, and something in Clara's chest cracked open. "You," she whispered. "Me." He moved closer slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. "I know you're scared. I know this doesn't make sense. But please, let me explain somewhere safe." "Safe." Clara's voice rose.
Who are you?
"How do you know Marcus? Why are you?" She looked at the three people who'd taken her ex-husband away, like it was nothing. "What are you?" Mateo's jaw tightened. "Someone who made you a promise at the airport. That you'd get somewhere safe. I'm just keeping it. By stalking me? By having people watch me? By protecting you." His voice was firm. "Clara, your ex-husband wasn't just abusive. He works for people, dangerous people, who are using him to get to me. You sleeping next to me at O'Hare? It put you on their radar. I couldn't just walk away and let them use you." Clara's mind reeled. "The passports. That was you."
No, Mateo Fronet.
"What passports?" She pulled the envelope from her pocket, hands shaking. Mateo took it, examining the documents, his expression darkening. "These aren't mine," he said. "Which means someone else is playing games." He looked at Teresa.
Get these analyzed.
"I want to know who made them." "Wait," Clara stepped back, pulling Noah with her. "You're not. You said people use you to get to dangerous people. What does that mean? Who are you?" Mateo met her eyes.
For a long moment, he didn't speak.
Then, quietly, "My name is Mateo DeLuca. My family ran certain operations in New York. Operations that most people would call organized crime." The word hung in the air between them. "You're a criminal," Clara whispered. "I was. I am." "It's complicated." He took a step closer. "But Clara, I'm not like Marcus. I've never hurt someone who didn't hurt me first. I've never hit a woman. Never touched a child. And I will die before I let anyone hurt you or Noah."
Why?
"You don't even know us." Something shifted in his expression. Pain. Raw and deep. "Because when Noah spilled that juice on my sleeve, he smiled at me. And I realized I hadn't made anyone smile in 2 years. Not since my sister and her son died." His voice cracked slightly. "You reminded me what it feels like to be human. And I forgot to be careful. Clara stared at him, this dangerous, powerful man who'd given her first-class tickets and smiled at her son, and apparently had the ability to make her ex-husband disappear. I'm terrified of you, she admitted.
Good.
You should be. Mateo pulled something from his pocket, a toy airplane, small and wooden, hand-carved. He held it out to Noah. But maybe not right now. Noah looked at his mother. Clara nodded, still wary. The boy took the plane, examining it with wide eyes. You made this? Noah asked. My grandfather taught me when I was your age. It's been a while, but Mateo's smile was gentle. Thought you might like it. Noah clutched the plane, then looked up at Mateo. Thank you. And just like that, Clara saw it, the humanity beneath the myth, the man behind the Mafia boss. The same person who'd handed them a blanket in the middle of the night and asked for nothing in return. She was still terrified. But she was also, for the first time in months, not alone. Where are you taking us? She asked quietly. Somewhere safe, Mateo said. Somewhere Marcus and everyone else will never find you. And then, if you want, I'll disappear from your life completely. But first, let me fix what I broke. Clara looked at Noah, at the toy plane in his hands, at the genuine hope in his eyes. She thought about running, about those fake passports, about trying to do this alone again. And then she thought about Marcus's face in the parking lot and how it had only taken Mateo's people 30 seconds to remove him from her life. Okay, she whispered. But you're going to explain everything. Everything, Mateo agreed. I promise. The car was a midnight blue Range Rover with tinted windows and leather seats that probably cost more than Clara had made in the last year. Mateo drove while Teresa followed in a second vehicle, just in case, though she didn't specify in case of what. Noah fell asleep within 20 minutes, the toy airplane clutched in his small fist, his head resting against the window. Clara watched the Phoenix sprawl give way to desert highway, saguaro cacti standing like silent sentinels in the fading afternoon light. Where are we going? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sedona. I have a property there, a villa that nobody knows about. Not even most of my people. Mateo kept his eyes on the road. It's safe. Private. You and Noah can stay as long as you need. Clara processed this. And Marcus. Being persuaded to leave Arizona and never come back, Mateo's tone was flat, final. He won't bother you again? You didn't kill him. No, he glanced at her. I told you, I'm trying to be different. Marcus is being given a choice. Disappear permanently, or face consequences he won't enjoy. Men like him understand self-preservation. And the Rossi family? You said they were dangerous. Mateo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. They're currently dealing with internal problems. Problems that will keep them busy for a long time. You're not on their radar anymore. Clara studied his profile. The sharp lines of his face, the scar through his eyebrow, the tension in his jaw. What did you do? I gave them the truth about their own people. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't violence, it's information. He paused. Sal Rossi thought he could use you to get to me. Instead, I used his own corruption to turn his family against him. No one died. No shots fired. Just consequences. The desert rolled past, vast and empty and beautiful in its harshness. Clara watched the sun begin its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really? Not the story about your sister. I believe that was part of it. But there's more, isn't there? Mateo was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, when Sophia died, I stopped believing in anything good. I became exactly what everyone expected, cold, calculating, dangerous. I built walls, so high that nothing could touch me. He glanced in the rearview mirror at Noah's sleeping form. And then I watched you sleep on an airport floor, protecting your son with your own body, and I realized. I'd forgotten what courage looked like. Real courage. Not the kind that comes from power or weapons or fear. The kind that comes from love. Clara's throat tightened. I'm not brave.
I'm terrified constantly.
That's what makes it brave, he smiled slightly. You think I'm not scared right now? I've got a woman and child in my car, both of whom I've dragged into a world they never asked for, and I have no idea if I'm protecting you or just making everything worse. Then why do it? Because power only buys silence, never peace. The words came out raw, honest. I've had power my whole life. I've had respect and fear and control. And I've never had a single moment of actual peace. Not until Noah spilled juice on my sleeve and reminded me what it felt like to just be human. They drove in silence after that, the landscape shifting from desert to red rock formations that glowed like fire in the setting sun. Noah stirred occasionally, muttering in his sleep, always settling when Clara reached back to touch his knee. Can I ask you something? Clara said eventually. Anything. Are you married? Kids of your own?
No.
Never married. No kids, Mateo's voice went softer. I had someone once, before Sophia died. But after the funeral, I pushed her away, told her I couldn't give her the life she deserved. Truth was, I was afraid that loving someone would give my enemies ammunition. Was she angry?
No.
She understood. That was almost worse, he paused. She sent me a letter last year. She's married now. Has a daughter. Said she hoped I'd find whatever I was looking for. Have you? Mateo looked at her, really looked at her, his dark eyes searching her face. I don't know yet. Ask me again when this is over. The villa appeared as the sun touched the horizon, a sprawling adobe structure built into the red rocks, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a courtyard filled with desert plants. It looked like something from a magazine, impossible and perfect. Clara carried a sleeping Noah inside while Teresa did a security sweep. The interior was all warm wood and stone, with Navajo rugs and modern furniture that somehow worked together. The guest room had a king bed and an adjoining room with twin beds, clearly meant for a family. Has anyone stayed here before? Clara asked, settling Noah onto one of the twin beds. No, Mateo stood in the doorway. I bought it 2 years ago after Sophia. Thought maybe I'd retire here someday, away from New York and the family business. Never got around to actually using it. So, we're the first. You are. Clara pulled a blanket over Noah, smoothing his hair back. When she turned, Mateo was still watching her with that intense, unreadable expression. Thank you, she said. For the tickets. For the protection. For this. I know I should probably still be terrified of you, and part of me is, but thank you. You don't need to thank me for fixing problems I cause. You didn't cause Marcus. He was terrorizing me long before you gave us a blanket. She stepped closer. You didn't have to do any of this. You could have just walked away at the airport. But you didn't. No, Mateo said quietly. I didn't. For a moment, they stood in the doorway, close enough that Clara could smell his cologne, could see the faint stubble on his jaw, could feel the warmth radiating from him. Then Noah shifted in his sleep, murmuring, Mama? The spell broke. I should let you rest, Mateo said, stepping back. The kitchen stocked. There's a security system. Teresa will show you how it works. And Clara? He paused in the hallway. You're safe here. I promise. After he left, Clara sat on the edge of Noah's bed and cried for the first time since they'd fled Chicago. Not from fear. From relief. And from the terrifying realization that she was starting to trust a man who, by all logic, she should be running from as fast as she'd run from Marcus. But Mateo DeLuca wasn't Marcus. And that difference might change everything. 3 days at the villa felt like 3 years. Clara woke each morning to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, the red rocks glowing outside like they were lit from within. Noah played in the courtyard, building elaborate cities with rocks and sticks, laughing in a way he hadn't laughed in months. Mateo was there, but not intrusive. He worked in the study, phone calls in Italian and English, video conferences with people whose faces Clara couldn't see. Sometimes she'd catch him watching Noah play, that same soft expression crossing his face before he locked it away. They ate dinner together. Simple meals that Matteo cooked himself: pasta, grilled vegetables, fresh bread. He moved around the kitchen with surprising ease, admitting that his grandmother had insisted all her grandsons learn to cook. She said a man who can't feed himself is a man who'll always be dependent on others, he explained, sliding a plate of carbonara in front of Clara. And De Lucas don't depend on anyone. Except each other? Clara ventured. Except each other, he agreed quietly. But underneath the domesticity, Clara felt unease growing. This wasn't real life. This was a bubble, a beautiful pause in reality that couldn't last. And Matteo, despite his kindness, despite the gentleness he showed Noah, remained a mystery wrapped in expensive suits and careful words. On the fourth morning, she confronted him. Noah was occupied with cartoons in the living room, giving Clara the chance to find Matteo on the back terrace. He stood at the railing, looking out over the valley, coffee cup in hand. "I need to understand," Clara said without preamble. Matteo turned. "Understand what?"
This. You.
"All of it," she crossed her arms. "You've given us safety, shelter, protection. You've asked for nothing in return. Men like you don't do that. There's always a price. So, what is it? What do you want from me?" Something flashed in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, or anger. "You think I'm keeping a tab? I think I don't understand why a man who runs a criminal empire would care about a single mom and her kid." Her voice rose slightly. "I've been trying to figure it out for days. What's the angle? Are you trying to use us somehow? Are we bait for something? Insurance?" No, the word came out hard. "Then what?" "Because I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't let myself trust this if it's going to disappear. I can't let Noah get attached if you're just going to." "If I'm just going to what, Clara? Hurt you? Use you? Throw you away when you're no longer useful?" Matteo set down his coffee cup with deliberate control. "Is that what you think of me? I don't know what to think of you. You're a contradiction. You're kind but dangerous. You protect us but you terrify me. You cook pasta and dismantle criminal organizations in the same day." Tears burned her eyes.
I'm scared, Matteo.
"I'm scared that this is too good to be true. I'm scared that you're too good to be true." He stared at her for a long moment, then turned back to the valley. When he spoke, his voice was raw. "You want to know why I'm doing this? Really?" "Yes. Because when I saw you at that airport, you looked exactly like Sophia did the night before she died." Clara went still. Matteo continued, his hands gripping the railing. "My sister came to me 6 months before the accident. She was scared. Her husband was getting pulled deeper into the family business, doing jobs she didn't approve of. She asked me to help her leave, to get her and Marco somewhere safe, away from all of it." "What did you say?" "I told her no." His voice broke slightly. "I told her that leaving would look like betrayal, that it would cause problems with the other families, that she needed to stay loyal, keep quiet, support her husband." He laughed bitterly. "I chose politics over her safety. And 3 weeks later, she and Marco were dead in a car accident that the police ruled mechanical failure." "Matteo." "But it wasn't mechanical failure. I had it investigated privately. The brake lines were cut. Someone sent a message to her husband, and my sister and nephew paid the price." He finally turned to face her, and Clara saw tears on his cheeks. "She came to me for help and I said no. And it killed her." Clara's hand went to her mouth. "So when I saw you in that airport, exhausted and terrified and protecting your son with everything you had, I saw Sophia. And I saw a second chance." He stepped closer. "If I let you fall, if I let Marcus or the Rossis or anyone else hurt you, I'd be killing her all over again. I'd be proving that I learned nothing from her death." "That's not fair to yourself," Clara whispered. "Fair?" He shook his head. "I don't care about fair. I care about not failing again. I care about the fact that a 7-year-old boy smiled at me and made me remember what it feels like to be something other than a weapon." His voice dropped. "You asked what I want from you? Nothing. I want nothing except to know that you and Noah are safe and happy somewhere in this world. That's it. That's the only price. Clara felt tears streaming down her own face now. I don't know how to accept that. Then don't accept it.
Question it.
Be suspicious. Keep your guard up. Mateo's dark eyes held hers. But don't think for 1 second that this is manipulation or strategy or some long game. This is me trying to be the person Sophia thought I could be before I let her down. They stood there in the morning sun, both of them crying, both of them raw and exposed in ways that terrified them. I was wrong about you, Clara said finally. No, you weren't. I am dangerous. I do run a criminal organization, or I did. I've done things that would make you run screaming. He wiped his eyes roughly. But I'm also trying to be better. And you and Noah, you make me want to actually succeed. Clara took a shaky breath. What happens when this is over? When Marcus is really gone and the Rossis forget about me? What happens to us? Whatever you want. New identities if you need them, real ones, not like those fake passports. Money to start over anywhere. Protection for as long as you want it, he paused. Or I walk away completely and you never see me again. Your choice. And if I don't know what I want, then you take all the time you need to figure it out. Mateo smiled sadly. I'm good at waiting, Clara. I've been waiting 2 years to feel human again. I can wait as long as it takes for you to trust me. Before she could respond, Noah's voice called from inside. Mama, Mr. Mateo, the cartoon is over. Can we make pancakes? The moment shattered. Mateo wiped his face, composing himself. Pancakes sound good. Clara caught his arm as he turned to go. Mateo? Thank you for telling me the truth. It's all I have left to give, he said quietly. And as they went inside to make pancakes with a 7-year-old who'd somehow become the bridge between two broken people, Clara realized something terrifying. She was falling for the most dangerous man she'd ever met.
And he was falling right back.
The call came at midnight. Clara woke to the sound of Mateo's voice in the hallway, low, controlled, but with an edge that made her sit up. She wrapped herself in a robe and cracked open the bedroom door. He stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, silhouetted against the moonlit red rocks. How bad?
Pause.
And Giovanni? Another pause. Good. Finish it. He ended the call and stood there for a moment, head bowed, like a man carrying the weight of the world. Mateo? Clara stepped into the hallway. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. Did I wake you? Is everything okay? Define okay, he smiled without humor. The Rossi family just imploded. Sal's been officially removed from power, exiled to Sicily with nothing but the clothes on his back. His father stripped him of everything. Because of what you did in Milan. Because of what he did to himself. I just helped the truth come out. Mateo ran a hand through his hair. But there's more. The other families are watching. They see what happened to the Rossis, how internal corruption destroyed them. And they're wondering if I used the same tactics on them. Did you?
No.
But fear is almost as effective as proof. He moved to the kitchen, pulling out a bottle of whiskey. They're calling it the Silent Winter, the end of an era without a single bullet fired. And they're terrified of me because of it. Clara watched him pour 2 glasses. Isn't that good? If they're afraid, they'll leave you alone. Or they'll unite against me. He handed her a glass. Fear makes people unpredictable. They sat at the kitchen island, the house quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. Clara sipped the whiskey, smooth and expensive, burning pleasantly down her throat. What are you going to do? She asked. Mateo stared into his glass. Something I should have done 2 years ago. Which is? Walk away. Clara blinked. What? I'm dismantling it. All of it. The businesses, the operations, the network. He met her eyes. I'm getting out, Clara. Completely. Can you just do that? Not easily. But yes, he took a long drink. I've been moving pieces for the past week. Transferring legitimate businesses to cousins who want to go straight. Selling off properties. Creating trusts and foundations. By the end of the month, the DeLuca organization will essentially cease to exist. Clara's mind reeled.
Why?
Because I'm tired, the words came out raw. I'm tired of being powerful. I'm tired of the violence and the politics and the constant calculation of who to trust and who to eliminate. I'm tired of being the person Sophia was ashamed of. She wasn't ashamed. Yes, she was. And she was right to be. Mateo's jaw tightened. I became exactly what our grandfather warned against, a man so focused on building an empire that he forgot to build a life. And for what? Money I'll never spend? Respect built on fear? A legacy that dies the moment I do. He stood, pacing to the window. You asked me what I want from you, Clara. Here's the truth. You showed me there's another way to live. You walked away from everything, money, security, your home, just to protect your son. You chose love over comfort. And I realized that's what real strength looks like. Clara's throat tightened. Mateo, you can't rebuild your entire life around. Around what? Around hope. He turned back to her. Why not? I've built empires around revenge and greed and fear. Maybe it's time to build something around hope instead. What will you do? If you're not. This. I don't know yet. A small smile. That's the terrifying part. I'm 41 years old, and I have no idea who I am without the organization. But I want to find out. Clara stood, moving closer to him. And the people who work for you? Vincent, Terese, Marco. Most of them want out too. They've been loyal because they thought they had to be, because that's what family does. But I'm giving them all a choice. Take a payout and walk away, or stay with me in whatever comes next. Either way, they're free. The other families won't just let you leave. They don't get a say. His voice went hard. I've documented everything. Every deal, every politician on payroll, every dirty secret I've collected over 20 years. It's all in a secure location with instructions to release if anything happens to me. That's my insurance policy.
Mutuelle assure de destruction, Clara murmure.
Exactly. They can't touch me without destroying themselves. He paused. It's not noble. It's not clean. But it's effective. They stood in the dim kitchen, the moon casting long shadows through the windows. Clara studied this complicated man, criminal and protector, dangerous and gentle, powerful and lost. I'm still scared of you sometimes, she admitted.
Good.
I'd worry if you weren't. Mateo reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The first time he deliberately touched her since the airport. But Clara, I'm scared of you too. Of me. Of what you make me want. A normal life. A family. Peace. His hand lingered near her cheek. I'm scared that I'll mess this up. That I'll pull you into darkness even as I'm trying to walk toward light. That I'm not capable of being the man you and Noah deserve. Clara's breath caught. Who says we deserve anything? We're just trying to survive. You're more than that. You're everything I forgot existed. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. And I know it's too soon. I know you need time. I know I have no right to want this when we've only known each other for 2 weeks. But Clara, she kissed him. It was impulsive and terrifying and probably a terrible decision, but she stood on her toes and pressed her lips to his, cutting off whatever he was about to say. For a moment, Mateo froze. Then he wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, kissing her back with a tenderness that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Clara whispered, "That was stupid." "Completely stupid," Mateo agreed. "I'm still scared." "Me too. And this is probably a terrible idea." "Definitely." He rested his forehead against hers. "But Clara, I haven't felt this alive in 2 years. So, if it's a terrible idea, at least it's one worth having." She laughed, the sound surprising her. "What do we do now?"
Now.
He smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "Now I finish dismantling an empire. And then we figure out what comes next. Together, if you'll let me." Clara thought about Marcus, about running, about sleeping on airport floors and stealing money in tampon boxes. She thought about fear and survival and all the ways life had taught her not to trust. And then she thought about Noah's laughter in the courtyard, about toy airplanes and carbonara dinners, about a man who was choosing to become someone better. Okay, she whispered. Together. Outside, the desert night stretched vast and dark and full of possibility. And inside, two broken people held each other and dared to believe in second chances. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal documents and encrypted phone calls. Clara watched Matteo dismantle his empire piece by piece. He spent hours in the study, meeting with lawyers and accountants via video conference. She'd bring him coffee and find him surrounded by papers, transfer agreements, charitable trust documents, severance packages for employees who'd served his family for decades. "Are you sure about this?" she asked one afternoon, setting down an espresso. Matteo looked up, exhausted but resolute. "I've never been more sure of anything." Vincent came to the villa once, his expression tight with disapproval. Clara overheard their conversation from the hallway. "The family won't understand, boss. They'll think you're abandoning them." "I'm freeing them," Matteo replied. "There's a difference. And if they don't want to be freed, then they can choose someone else to follow. Anthony's ready if they want him. Or they can walk away entirely. I've made sure everyone has enough to start over." A long pause. "What about you? What will you do?"
Live.
"Actually live, Vincent. You should try it." Vincent left without saying goodbye to Clara. She understood. She was the catalyst for this upheaval, the woman who'd somehow convinced Matteo DeLuca to give up everything. But not everyone resented her. Teresa stopped by with groceries one morning and found Clara in the kitchen, attempting to make bread. "He's different with you," Teresa said, unpacking vegetables.
Softer. More.
"Human. Is that good?" "It's terrifying, honestly. I've known Matteo for 8 years. I've seen him negotiate deals that would make your blood run cold. I've watched him stare down men twice his size without flinching." She paused. "But I've never seen him smile the way he smiles when Noah shows him a drawing." Clara's hands stilled in the dough. "Do you think he's making a mistake? Leaving all of this?" "I think he's making the first real choice he's had in 20 years, Teresa met her eyes. His grandfather groomed him for this life from birth. He never got to choose. You're giving him that choice. Whether it's a mistake or not, time will tell." That night, after Noah was asleep, Clara found Matteo on the terrace again. He stood at the railing, staring at the stars scattered across the desert sky like diamonds. "It's done," he said without turning around. "As of 6 p.m., I officially hold no position in any DeLuca operation. The businesses are transferred. The accounts are closed. The network is dissolved." Clara joined him at the railing. "How do you feel?" "Terrified."
Relieved.
"Free," he laughed shakily. "Like I just jumped off a cliff, and I'm not sure if I'm flying or falling. What happens now?" "Now I figure out who Matteo DeLuca is when he's not a boss or a criminal or a weapon," he turned to her. "And I do it somewhere far from here. Somewhere the past can't follow." Something cold settled in Clara's stomach. "You're leaving." "We're leaving. You, me, and Noah, if you want." His eyes searched her face. "I have a place. Small town in coastal Washington, near the Canadian border. House on the water. Good schools, community that minds its own business. I bought it years ago under a shell company, completely off the books. No one knows about it except my lawyer." Clara's heart raced. "You want us to come with you?" "I want you to be safe. And I want to be wherever you are." He took her hands. "But Clara, this has to be your choice. Not because you're grateful or because you feel obligated. Because you actually want this. Want us. I barely know you." "I know. And that's why I'm not asking you to decide tonight." He released her hands, stepping back.
Take time.
"Think about it. I'll arrange everything for you and Noah regardless. New identities, bank accounts, security. You'll be taken care of whether I'm there or not. And if I say yes, if I want you there." His expression cracked open, vulnerable and hopeful. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving you didn't make a mistake." Clara opened her mouth to respond, but Mateo shook his head. Don't answer now.
Sleep on it.
I'm going to New York tomorrow, final meeting with the family, some loose ends to tie up. I'll be gone 3 days, maybe 4. When I come back, you can tell me what you decided. Mateo.
Please.
I need you to be sure. His voice was rough. Because if you choose this, Clara, you're choosing me, all of me, including the parts I'm still trying to fix. And I need to know that's really what you want. That night, Clara lay awake long after Mateo had gone to his room. She stared at the ceiling, Noah's soft breathing from the next bed, and tried to imagine a future in coastal Washington with a reformed Mafia boss who'd become the most complicated part of her life. In the morning, Mateo was already dressed when she found him, dark suit, overnight bag by the door. He looked every inch the powerful man he'd been, except for his eyes. Those were soft when they landed on her. Take care of him, he said, gesturing toward Noah's room. Of course. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Went back to the couch where his coat lay folded. He picked it up, the same coat he'd worn at the airport, and draped it over a chair. Keep it warm for me, he said, attempting a smile. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. And then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving only the coat and the faint scent of his cologne, and a silence that felt too heavy to bear. Clara stood there for a long time, running her fingers over the coat's expensive fabric, feeling the weight of a decision she wasn't sure she was ready to make. In Noah's room, her son stirred awake.
Mama?
Where's Mr. Mateo? He had to go away for a little while, baby. Is he coming back? Clara looked at the coat draped over the chair, a promise or a test or maybe both. I don't know, she whispered. But she was starting to hope he would. And hope, she was learning, was the most dangerous thing of all. For months later, Clara stood in the kitchen of a small cottage in Bellingham, Washington, watching the morning fog roll across the bay. Noah was at school, his 3rd week at Sunnyland Elementary, where he'd already made 2 friends and joined the art club. He came home every day with paintings of boats and whales and the mountains that rose like sentinels beyond the water. They'd moved here 6 weeks after Mateo left for New York. He never came back to Sedona. The day after he left, Clara had found a letter on the kitchen counter, along with a thick envelope of documents. The letter was brief. Clara, by the time you read this, you'll have heard the news. I'm sorry I couldn't say goodbye in person. Some goodbyes are too hard to say out loud. Everything you need is in the envelope. New identities, real ones this time, bank accounts, deed to the house in Washington, and a trust fund for Noah's education. You're set for life, no strings attached. I meant what I said about wanting to be wherever you are. But I also meant what I said about you needing to choose freely. So, I'm making the choice easier. I'm removing myself from the equation. You and Noah deserve a peaceful life. I'm not sure I'm capable of giving you that, no matter how much I want to be. Be happy, Clara. That's all I ever wanted. The news had come that same afternoon. Billionaire philanthropist Matteo De Luca presumed dead after private jet explodes off the Amalfi Coast. Investigators searching for remains. Clara had watched the report with numb disbelief, Noah clutching her hand, asking in a small voice if the nice man was gone. She told him yes, even as something inside her refused to believe it. Vincent had called once, 2 weeks later. He wanted you to know it's done. He's free. So are you. Is he really dead? She'd asked. A long pause. Does it matter?
It did.
It didn't. Clara couldn't decide which answer was true. So she'd taken Noah to Washington, to the cottage Mateo had bought under a false name. She'd enrolled her son in school, found work at a bookstore, built the quiet life she'd always dreamed of. And every day, she looked at Mateo's coat, still draped over a chair in her bedroom, never put away, and wondered if she'd made the right choice. If staying would have been braver than leaving. If love was supposed to feel this much like grief. Now, for months later, Clara checked the mailbox on her way back from the bus stop. Bills, grocery store flyers, a postcard from her mother who'd finally stopped asking questions about Noah's father, and a plain envelope with no return address. Clara's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single airplane ticket, Seattle to Rome, departing in 2 weeks, and a note in handwriting she'd recognize anywhere. You were never running, Clara. You were already free. If you ever miss another flight, take this one. I'll be waiting in the clouds. Clara's vision blurred with tears. She read the note again, then again, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it. He was alive. Matteo was alive, and he'd been waiting, giving her space, letting her build a life, making sure she could stand on her own 2 feet before asking her to choose. She looked up at the sky, where a plane was crossing the bay, leaving contrails like chalk marks on blue canvas. I'll be waiting in the clouds. That night, after Noah was asleep, Clara sat at her kitchen table with the ticket and tried to think rationally. She had a life here. A good life. Safe, stable, exactly what she'd wanted. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Matteo's face the morning he'd left, vulnerable and hopeful and terrified. She saw him teaching Noah to carve airplanes from wood. She saw him cooking pasta in the Sedona kitchen, smiling like he'd forgotten how. She saw the man who dismantled an empire because she'd shown him there was another way to live. And she realized that being free didn't mean being alone. It meant choosing who you wanted beside you. 2 weeks later, Clara and Noah boarded a plane to Rome. She'd closed up the cottage, put everything in storage, and packed 2 suitcases with their entire lives. Noah clutched the wooden airplane Matteo had made him, chattering excitedly about visiting Italy. He didn't fully understand where they were going or why, but he trusted his mother. And Clara was finally learning to trust herself. As the plane lifted off, Clara pressed her face to the window, watching the coast disappear below them. Somewhere over the Atlantic, Noah fell asleep against her shoulder, and she pulled Matteo's coat, folded carefully in her carry-on, onto her lap. She'd kept it warm, just like he'd asked. The note had said clouds, but Clara knew better. Matteo wouldn't be literal. He'd be somewhere unexpected, somewhere meaningful. The airplane carving. Noah's toy. The first moment Matteo had smiled in 2 years. She'd figure it out. And when she did, she'd find him, this complicated, dangerous, gentle man who'd given up everything to become someone worthy of being found. The plane climbed higher, breaking through clouds into brilliant sunshine. And Clara smiled, her hand resting on the coat, her son sleeping peacefully beside her. She wasn't running anymore. She was flying toward something instead of away from it. Toward redemption. Toward hope. Toward a man who'd taught her that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be saved. Somewhere in the clouds ahead, Matteo De Luca was waiting. And Clara Bennett was finally ready to say yes. The end.